Welcome to your next lecture. Over the past few weeks, you've learned quite a bit about the writing process. Although there's still a part of the process we have yet to discuss, revising and editing, let's talk about how to develop our essays before we talk about how to polish them. This week, I'd like to introduce essays designed to describe, narrate, exemplify, and detail a process. Let's take a look at how these purposes differ and how you can use them to your advantage. Ready to get started? What we write about plays heavily into the type of essay we choose to write. Luckily for both writers and readers, not every essay has to be set up exactly the same. Some essays describe events or people. Others tell a story. Others offer examples of an idea. And others still walk the reader through a process of how to do something. How do we decide what approach to use? This depends on your assignment. If you have to write a research paper, you're likely not going to have a lot of people speaking to one another, called dialogue, which we often use in narration. Instead, you'll be presenting facts and maybe examples. But if you were asked to write the story of your first date, you might tell us this story the way it happened, using narration. The three most common purposes in writing are to inform, to persuade, and to entertain. Academic writing often has to do with persuasion or argumentation. When we write essays about topics like global warming, we need to prove to our reader the urgency or importance of our topic. You'll definitely write papers like this as you continue your journey as a student. But you will also write less formal essays, ones in which you are asked to describe an event in your life or your reaction to something. Learning what your opinions are and how to leverage these options to write effectively is an important job. Have you ever heard the term point of view? Perhaps you have. Say you wanted to give someone your opinion on the presidential election. Maybe you would say, I think Barack Obama will do the job well. I really hope he gets elected. Your friend or whoever you're speaking to might say, yeah, well, that's your point of view. I don't think Obama will make a good president at all. Your friend is correct, well, about the point of view anyway. Point of view is defined as a position from which a thing is viewed, or a particular way of considering a matter. Put more simply, it's how we see something. And in writing, point of view is the perspective from which the story is told. When we write a first-person point of view, we use words like I, me, mine, we, our, and us to get our point across. Consider this example. Today I went to the farmer's market downtown. I bought tomatoes, pomegranates, salad greens, and sunflowers. My partner and I go to the farmer's market often. We love it. It's one of our favorite places to go. Do you see how I used the words I, we, and our in this example? I, the person telling the story, am telling you a story about myself. This point of view is often used when we write essays based on personal experience. After all, in those essays, we tend to be writing about ourselves. Let's consider two other types of point of view. Second-person point of view is used least often, and I must warn you, it's quite difficult to pull off. Let's look at an example before I define it. Today you will go to the farmer's market downtown. You will buy tomatoes, pomegranates, salad greens, and sunflowers. You and your partner go to the farmer's market often. You love it. It's one of your favorite places to go. Do you see the difference between this example and the original? This example uses the word you throughout. It sounds as though I, the writer, am talking to you, the reader. It also sounds bossy, doesn't it? The only time you might use this point of view is when you write a process essay, an essay in which you describe to someone how to do something. We'll talk more about process essays in a few minutes. Third-person point of view is the most common point of view in academic writing. When we write in third person, we do not refer to ourselves, the writers, or the readers directly. Instead, we take the stance of an outsider presenting information. We do this by using names of individuals as well as pronouns such as their, them, and they. Let's go to the farmer's market one more time for an example. Today, Corinne went to the farmer's market downtown. She bought tomatoes, pomegranates, salad greens, and sunflowers. She and her partner Scott go to the farmer's market often. They love it. It's one of their favorite places to go. In the example, in which I used third-person point of view, I delivered information as though I were observing an event, even if that event really happened to me. This point of view is formal, and well received. I'd like to switch gears now and talk about description. What is description, and when might we use it in writing? According to your textbook, a description is a verbal picture of a person, place, or thing. When we write descriptively, we are able to let our readers into a richer, fuller experience. To write descriptively, think about details that appeal to your senses. What do you see, hear, smell, touch, and taste? When we write these details, our reader is able to experience what we do. This makes our writing more interesting, more vivid, and more believable. Let's look at some examples of description. Let's begin with taste. Assume I ate pizza for lunch today. I could say, I ate pizza for lunch. Or I could say, I had a slice of pizza from La Fontana on the boulevard. As always, the crust was chewy, but not too chewy. There was just enough sauce, and it was perfectly sweet. And the cheese was spread evenly and melted all the way through. Do you see how the description I offer of the pizza is more appealing than simply saying, I had pizza for lunch? Now let's try a visual description. I could say, the leaves are colorful, but instead I might say, it's that time of year again when the leaves start changing in New England. The oak tree on the corner is a bright, vibrant red, while the maple beside it expresses itself in varying shades of yellow and orange. Don't you feel closer to the colorful leaves when I use description? How about hearing? I could say, I hear the music. That's simple and straightforward, right? But does it give you any sense of what the music I hear sounds like? Not at all. How about this instead? From the headphones that hug my ears, I hear the sound of reggae music, upbeat and powerful rhythms that make me think of islands and palm trees and dreadlocked Rastafarians who have used their music to help them rise above their oppression. Clearly, that's much more descriptive, now isn't it? Of course, not every essay calls for description. You'll know it is appropriate to use description if you find that you want your reader to experience a situation the way you did. Details help make a story or situation compelling and interesting. Try some descriptive writing and see how it feels. Now let's talk about narration. Narration is storytelling. When we write in narration, we tell the story of something that has happened. If we want a reader to experience a situation exactly the way we did, we're likely to utilize both description and narration. Why? Because doing so will allow us to draw our readers in, entertain or convince them, and write effectively. Let's consider an example. I could say, I decided that I will go to Florida next month. This is informative, but what might help more is this narration. Last night I found out that my grandmother, who lives in Tampa, Florida, is not doing very well. She has lymphoma and emphysema and is falling victim to her old age and ailing body. I had known about her health problems, but until my brother told me that he doesn't think she'll live much longer, I wasn't aware of just how serious her condition is. My brother said, you live all the way across the country, so I know it's a shot in the dark, but maybe you can join Dad and me when we visit Grandma next month. I was doing dishes at the time. I turned off the water, dried my hands, and sat down on the couch. She's really not well, huh? I asked. No, he replied. Well, let me give it some thought, I said. And after saying goodbye, I hung up the phone and immediately went online to see what it would cost to fly from San Jose, California to Tampa, Florida a few weeks from now. The ticket wasn't very expensive, but you know, even if it had been, I would have to go anyway. Life is short, and family is important. Okay, let me pause to reiterate. I could have said, I will go to Florida, but instead I narrated for you exactly what led up to my decision to go to Florida. You learn more details, are probably more interested, and have to agree that the writing is more effective. We've spoken about description and narration as ways to deepen and strengthen our writing. I'd like to talk about two more methods that will help you do the same: exemplification and process. Let's look at exemplification first. What is exemplification? Why might we use it? You can think of exemplification as the use of examples to make a point stronger. When we write descriptively, we convey our sensory experiences. And when we narrate, we explain something as it happens. Examples support our writing. In academic writing, this is an especially important technique. Let's consider a few examples. I might say my favorite color is green, but that is a pretty boring statement. Besides, it's not very convincing. Instead, I could say green is part of my everyday life. I write with green pens. I wear green shirts. I used to wear green shoes until the soles wore out. I recently sold my bright green Volkswagen and even cook with a green frying pan. Do you see how the examples of green things in my life help support the fact that I like green? Let's look at one more example. What if I simply said, I like San Francisco? Okay, you'd have a basic piece of information. But I like San Francisco is a pretty empty statement, and you're probably not very interested. Instead, I might say, I miss the literary scene of San Francisco. When I lived there for 3 years, there were endless reading and writing events to attend. I made many close friends in San Francisco. I enjoyed living amongst the different cultures of the city. I loved the energy and the excitement. Between the parks, the beach, the art, the landmarks, the diversity of the culture, and my friends in the city, I didn't live a single boring day when I lived in San Francisco. Now you have more information, and that information is provided to you by way of example. Through exemplification, you learn why I like San Francisco. There's just one more method of essay development I'd like to discuss today, and that's how to write an essay that details a process. A process is defined as a series of steps carried out in a definite order. When we feed our cat, take out the garbage, make the bed, drive a car, we do things in a definite order. We perform many of the same processes so many times that we no longer think of them as processes. Yet we may at some point need to relay to someone how to do something the way we do it. Assume that I have to travel soon and will need someone to take care of my pets. My friend Chris is going to take care of them. If I said to him, Chris, please feed my cats for me while I'm away, that isn't enough information. Instead, I'd need to give him an indication of how I need him to feed my cats. Here's an example of what I might say. I have 3 cats, Louie, Jim, and Raina. Louie prefers the soft canned food. Please feed him 1 small can in the morning around 8 a.m. and 1 small can in the evening around 5 p.m. If he isn't fed around those times, he'll eat too quickly and get sick. Jim doesn't eat the soft canned food. Instead, he eats the dry food, which dispenses automatically. Will you please keep an eye on the container and make sure it doesn't become empty? Otherwise, Jim needs clean water because he drinks a lot. Raina will eat anything and everything. She likes spiders and mosquitoes, soft food, dry food, carrots, spinach, peanut butter, anything she can get to. After you put down the soft food for Louie and make sure Jim has his water, will you please direct her to her food bowl and encourage her to eat food instead of random debris lying around the house? As you can see, there's quite a process involved in the feeding of my cats. Had I merely told Chris to feed the cats, they might not have been adequately cared for. Do you see the value of walking through a process in writing? Essays that detail a process must include all necessary steps, and those steps must be described in a clear and logical way. Words like first, next, also, then, finally, and during also help